scammers, tricksters, counterfeiters. For as long as coins have existed, there have been those that dedicated their time to fake them, trying to make some extra money. Notice I have titled this video Ancient Fake Coins, not Fake Ancient Coins. That is because instead of discussing coins made on modern times meant to trick collectors, passing for real ancient coins, we will be looking at coins that are truly ancient artifacts meant to pass as real coins back in their day. So as I said, as soon as the very first coins were made, there have been instances of fakes being produced. I'm putting on screen now a fake electrum hecte. It's from the 7th century BC, one of the very first coins to be ever made. It's the one on the right, while we can see an authentic one on the left. Funnily enough, the very first anti-counterfeiting technique that was developed, in this case this little punch on the coin, meant to show that the coin was pure metal all the way to its core, was quickly replicated by whoever made the first fake. That's probably why we see that this strategy of putting an incuse punch quickly disappears after the very first century or so of coinage, as it simply wasn't a feature that did its job properly. However, not all fake coins were made with criminal intentions. In fact, I don't even like to use this broad term, fake, because as we will see, there are many reasons why an imitation, there it is, imitation, that's a better name, were made. And some of these reasons were benign, really. So I classify the imitations that we see around in three kinds: counterfeits, tokens, and unofficial issues. And I've brought one example of each type, so let's take a look at them. The first kind of imitation, it's the most obvious one, and it's what people immediately think about, an actual counterfeit. These were made to pass as real coins, minted by the state authority. So generally, these are copies of coins of higher denomination, intended to deceive the people and to enrich the counterfeited. Obviously, this was a major crime throughout history, in many instances punishable as harshly as crimes such as treason, because it was said that the right to mint money was a privilege of the king or emperor or whatever, and to fake such money was legally seen as undermining the very right of this monarch to his or her rule. So making counterfeits was generally punishable by death. And there were many techniques that were used to make fakes, but in my opinion, the most fascinating and the most complex was the striking of plated copies, also known as forêt. A forêt was a coin meant to pass as a piece of solid silver or gold, but in reality it was a piece of base metal, wrapped in a thin sheet of the precious metal, and struck with either stolen or handmade new dies. What we have on screen now is a plated denarius from the time of Emperor Hadrian. The first thing you might have guessed already from these kinds of fakes is that they look a lot like the real thing. Therefore, they're incredibly hard to make. For you to strike a copy of a coin, you had to either steal a set of dice from a mint, something incredibly hard, as you might imagine a mint was a place very heavily guarded, or you would have to engrave yourself a very convincing copy of a die to strike your own coins, which would likely mean convincing one of the own die engravers of the imperial mints to join you on your criminal activity. This was a very specialized task, engraving these delicate coins. Very few people would have had the talent, the skills, or the tools to do that. And yeah, remember that part about it being punishable by death. So it comes to my surprise, really, that what we have here is an outstanding example of a plated copy. This would have been very difficult to detect, and only after quite a lot of hands have handled this coin would the outer plating start flaking off, exposing the base metal core. I mean, look at the thing. 2,000 years old, and it only has a few spots of it exposed. The striking of plated forgeries was actually quite rampant in antiquity, particularly in the ancient Greek world. It's quite common to find big silver coins like tetradrachma with what we call test cuts, massive gashes made on coins with a chisel, meant to cut deep into the coin's core to see if it was made out of good metal. It's an unfortunate thing for us numismatists, as a lot of these big, beautiful coins are defaced by these cuts, but it's an interesting historical touch to think that once, many years ago, someone picked up this coin, was suspicious of it, gave it a good old whack with a hammer, and looked into it to see if it was authentic. From that gorgeous denarius, we go to this thing. Now, what on earth is this lump of metal? Sadly, you people can't have it on your hands, but let me tell you, this is surprisingly heavy, and that is because it is made out of lead. Lead is not a good metal for coinage. It is too soft, which might sound like an advantage for making the coin, but it results on a coin that can't withstand circulation for very long. It also reacts with a lot of elements, getting ugly looking very quickly. That's why instead of a metallic color, what we have now is this weird mixture of metal and soil minerals. Differently to the counterfeit denarius, this won't trick anyone as a real coin. It wasn't meant to trick anyone back then. So what is the point of this coin? Well, this is what I would call a token. A token has some sort of trade or monetary value, but it is restricted to a very specific environmental purpose. Think about a casino chip. It is made to represent money, but only inside the premises of the casino. This is what we have here, a token, meant to serve as money in a very specific context. And we can get a clue to which context that was for looking at its designs, because fortunately it imitates a design of a real coin. This is most certainly a token originated from ancient Spain, because on its obverse we can make out a masculine head, a very common depiction on coinage of the many Celtiberian tribes of the region. I'm putting up on screen an example of a coin from the city of Castulo, an important Celtiberian settlement. Despite its importance, there must have been certain areas more distant to the urban centers. So think about small agricultural communities or mining camps where not enough official coinage would reach these locations. Well, they had to conduct commerce around that area somehow, and that's where these tokens come into place, as a temporary solution for a lack of coinage on a specific area. On the reverse, although it's hard to make out, we have a sphinx, quite common on the coinage of Castulo. I really like this piece, not only because it is quite unique and I would say a little bit rare, but to think that whichever community used this on the past was so accustomed to the use of coinage that they even, when faced with a shortage of metal or coined money, they resorted to minting their own local imitative tokens instead of reverting back to barter. A fascinating little piece that shows how coinage revolutionized human commerce for its practicity. Finally, let's go to what I call unofficial issues. But before showing the unofficial coin, let's see an official coin. This is a coin of the Gallic Emperor Tetricus. The Gallic Empire was a breakaway state from the Roman Empire during the crisis of the 3rd century. This was a tough time for Rome. Civil wars, economic collapse, plague, and rampant inflation that completely destroyed the Roman monetary system, reducing the once great Roman silver coins into these pitiful pieces of bronze. This rampant inflation generated two problems. First, it required ever larger quantities of coins for the economy to function, as the coins with good silver content were hoarded away. And let's remember that this was a pre-industrial society, so not enough coins were made, leading to a shortage of coins, because you needed a truckload of coins to pay for anything. As a result, local communities must have started minting their own copies to mitigate the shortage issue. But also, The whole economic collapse meant that coinage quality also collapsed. So among the mountains of crappy quote-unquote official coins entering circulation, a forger not only was very unlikely to be caught, but the silver content on the official coins was so low already that his copies were very likely to just be tolerated by merchants. All periods of Roman history when inflation was a problem are accompanied by a massive spike on the number of unofficially struck coins that made it to our days. So these coins were either actual counterfeits that were tolerated due to the dire circumstances of the time, or an attempt by local authorities to mitigate a coin shortage. Looking at our example here, I would argue this coin is an unofficial issue rather than a forgery. It is very small for a normal issue, but the bust is reasonably well made and the legends are actually legible, while some other copies have corrupted letters. So you would have guessed that counterfeiter would be maybe illiterate, so a coin from a counterfeit would just have garbled legends. Funnily enough, the reverse of the copy is in better condition than the official coin, which is barely visible to it being struck with a horribly worn die. It imitates an issue with a salus reverse, a coin that was indeed struck by Tetricus, so whoever engraved the die for this imitation had a real coin of Tetricus next to him to copy. And there is it, a basic introduction to the main types of ancient fakes out there. They're actually quite collectible. Have you got an ancient counterfeit? Let us know in the comment section down below. I hope you enjoyed this little episode. If you learned something and enjoyed it, please consider leaving a like and subscribing. Happy collecting, and I'll see you soon.